I agree that illegal immigrants are providing a lot of value, and we need to get that value from somewhere. I'm just saying we can get it from legal immigrants. And as a point of fairness, those legal immigrants should be the people who have been waiting in line patiently to get into the country the right way, not people who broke the law and are already here and for whom it's inconvenient to leave the country because we started enforcing the law.
Sure, but if Donald Trump suggested tomorrow he can push a button to deport 20 million people with no path to getting anybody else in here, would that be something you would support?
Sorry, say the question again.
Let's say that we could push a button tomorrow and deport 20 million people, but there was no realistic mechanism to replace even a tenth of that. Would you support that?
In this video, Destiny educates this right-winger's delusional takes. So Destiny goes back and forth with Kaizen Asiedu, who's out here pitching what honestly sounds like a feel-good fantasy immigration plan. He's talking about gently encouraging millions of undocumented immigrants to just leave, overhauling the legal immigration system, and somehow doing all of this without tanking the economy or tearing communities apart. The second Destiny asks how any of this is supposed to work, like in real life, Kaizen just straight up stalls hard. You're gonna clearly see how he tries to defend his soft, right-wing pipe dream with no real plan to back it up. Destiny just keeps it simple and grounded, and Kaizen just can't hang. So make sure to watch till the end to see how Destiny educates this right-winger's delusional takes.
I just don't understand because the fact that you even had to think about it says enough about that question. Because apparently Americans were so, and this is also a thing where I have a hard time figuring out what anybody actually cares about. Before we said Americans were so concerned about the economy, they were so concerned about like the cost of groceries and everything, and now we're like, I think we can actually sustain hundreds and hundreds of billions of economic damage to deport people that, for a lot of these people, they don't even see them every day. You know, people in swing states have these super strong feelings about illegal immigrants that are like in Texas and California. It's like, what?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I had to think about it is because it's actually a nuanced question. Like, what's worth it? What is it worth it to you to just solve the illegal immigration problem, take the economic damage, and have no route out? And I would say probably not, and that's not what we should be doing anyway. I think the better question is, are you in favor of removing people and simultaneously making legal immigration more viable? Or would you just rather keep people in the country and make legal immigration more viable? It sounds like you're in favor of just keeping people in the country, and it sounds like we both agree that legal immigration needs to be made more viable. I am saying I would rather we gently remove and incentivize people to remove themselves from the country, because I agree forceful deportation of 10 to 20 million people is not logistically viable, and we do this the right way.
Why can't we just do like we in Ellis Island, there were a ton of people that came in. They just wrote a name in a book. Mm-hmm. Well, I know from Cuba, you had the Mariel boat lifts or whatever. Tons of people, tens of thousands of people just came in and they're like, okay, yeah, we'll take it. Why not write a law in Congress saying like, listen, if you're here, go to your office, sign up or whatever, and we're going to figure out a pathway to at least having a green card, since they're already embedded. They're already like, imagine if you're like a landlord, or imagine if you own a business and all of a sudden like the federal government has just excised half of your tenants or excised half your employees, and it's like, holy shit, I have to wait for all these other people. I guess like the harm would just be unreal.
I agree, and that's why I'm saying the ideal solution is not to just do one part. Let's do all of it at the same time.
But that's not what you're suggesting is impossible, right?
Sorry, why is it impossible?
That for every one, like if I'm a landlord and I've got 10 tenants and say I don't know this, but say 4 of them are illegal immigrants, you're gonna take one out and then in the next day swap in a legal immigrant?
Oh no! I'm not saying do it in a single day. This can be drawn out over time. Like,
but businesses and landlords, businesses and cities and people that have these people integrated into the parts of their economy, companies, they can't wait months and months and months with no employees, with no renters, with no.
Yeah, and I'm saying that's why, yes, we have to land the transition properly. And maybe this is something that happens over the course of a year. Maybe over the course of a year, you say, hey, look, people who are here illegally, you get $5,000 to $10,000 to leave the country by the end of the year. Simultaneously, we're going to increase the throughput of a legal immigration system. Hey, businesses, so you know, we've staffed the IRS, and I know you said we should staff the IRS, I agree, so that we can actually enforce the law, because you're not going to be able to continue to pay people under the table in perpetuity. So we give people a heads up, we give them a grace time to transition, and we do this delicately. It doesn't need to be we push a button and we remove 10 to 20 million people out of the country. I think the framing of that question is like, that's why I had to think of it as like, I mean, I don't really think it's a fair question because that's not what I'm proposing at all. But yeah, I think you pointed out a good trade-off. Like, are we willing to just remove 10 to 20 million people from the country illegally with no alternative? I think we should have an alternative. Let's just do this right.
So this is the point where Kaizen's whole approach just starts falling apart. Like, Destiny asks a straight-up, fair question. What if you deport millions of undocumented immigrants and there's no one lined up to take their place? And Kaizen just pauses up, not because the question's confusing, but because he knows there's no clean answer here. That moment alone kinda tells you everything here. You can't just push a national immigration plan that totally crumbles the second someone brings up economic reality. Then Kaizen tries to recover by painting this big idealistic picture. Give people $10,000 to leave voluntarily. Let businesses and cities just slowly adjust, ramp up legal immigration, and somehow make it all line up just right. But Destiny just keeps it real. You're not replacing 10 to 20 million people overnight. You're not giving landlords months of unpaid rent. You're not telling restaurants and construction sites to just hold on while the workforce vanishes. The scale of the damages will just be so massive, and Kaizen's acting like we're just one good tax incentive away from solving it all. And that's what makes Kaizen's argument feel more like a soft-spoken right-wing fantasy than an actual solution. He's not talking policy, he's just pitching a hope. Destiny is pointing out that there's no Congress, no timeline, and no infrastructure that makes this transition even remotely feasible. And instead of dealing with that, Kaizen just keeps defaulting to, well, ideally we do it slowly. Like that's not a fix. That's just procrastinating with a nicer tone.
Oh, that just is not a realistic thing in any way, size, shape, or form. The frustration I have is that these are real problems, and I think we need like real solutions for them. But it's always these like pie in the sky things that like this wouldn't even escape a Republican-controlled supermajority Congress of like we're going to push a button and deport, not push a button, but we're going to find a way to deport 10 to 20 million people. It's never happening. And then as a result of like entertaining these types of delusions, we just kick the can down the road and indefinitely never actually solve the issue. And it's actually so frustrating because these same people will then show up in 4 years and say, this is a huge problem. And it's like, okay, well, can we actually do something about it?
Yeah.
Yes, we're going to slowly deport 20 million people making legal. No, we're not. That's never happening, right?
Well, I maybe just call me an idealist. I think it can happen. I think with
what odds would you, if we were to bet $1,000, what odds would you take for that? Like I would give you 100 to 1 odds that we're not deporting 10 million people. 100 to 1 odds. They're huge betting odds that we're not deporting 10 million people in the next 4 years. It's not happening.
Yeah, I don't think Trump is going to do it the way he's doing it. I'm talking about the way that we should do it, and I think that the way that we should do it requires generational leadership, and it's totally possible. I don't see anything infeasible.
I don't care about what's possible. There a lot of things are possible. 1 in a trillion things are possible. We should go for what's feasible and what's probable. Like what can we actually do?
So please explain to me what's fundamentally infeasible about overhauling our legal immigration system, providing incentives to illegal immigrants such that they self-deport, stepping up our forceful deportation so that the people who don't choose to self-deport, we do actually have to forcefully deport, unfortunately, and doing this with enough proper messaging in advance so that it can be done properly.
So number one seems to be, so the feasibility for number one is DOA because it seems like nobody even wants to have a conversation about what legal immigration should look like in the United States because we don't even know what I guess I don't even know what people's actual positions are. So, for instance, if you would have asked me 6 months ago or 4 months ago what conservatives thought about asylum, I would say conservatives don't even believe asylum seekers are real. That's, in my opinion, that's what they would have said. But now, apparently, for white people in South Africa, apparently asylum seeking is like the most important thing ever. And so these people are coming here for asylum, and we're all clapping for that. So I don't even know what a reformation of the immigration system looks like because I don't even think we've come to the table and begun to discuss. A lot of people are under the assumption, for instance, that we only need high-skill immigrants. But then the H-1B situation popped up. It's like, actually, hold on. I don't think we need medium or high-skill immigrants. I don't want these people at all. And then for people coming from South America or from Mexico, it's like, well, we don't need low-skill labor either because reasons, I guess. So I don't know. So that's the first thing. The second thing in terms of deporting people, it's a catastrophic impact to start deporting people en masse. If you want to talk about like doing these deportations where ICE is like going into a prison and they find some people that are they don't have good immigration status and they kick them out or whatever, okay, fine, whatever. That's not a huge impact. But if you're talking about people that are just integrated into a community, that are working, that have their kids going to school or whatever, but they're undocumented or illegal persons, and then you start kicking these people out, it's not just even giving money to those people to make them right or whole. I don't even know if we're going to kick them out, kick them out. You're talking about a ricochet effect through these entire communities. You're talking about cars that are going to be abandoned that aren't going to have payments made on them. You're talking about properties that are going to be abandoned that aren't going to have rent paid. You're talking about companies that are going to lose employees that aren't going to have workers. Like all of these effects are happening for some vague notion of fairness in a country that elected a guy who's a 34-time convicted felon. Not to point anything out in particular about Trump. I'm just saying that it's interesting that we're able to make some concessions on fairness in some places, but then in other places we're like, we have to do this exactly 100% the right way. But that right way could never include some sort of amnesty, even though we essentially did that, like for people coming in through Ellis Island, or the Cuba example was one I gave. There's a path forward where there's a discussion where I think it could happen. We need some kind of amnesty thing. Otherwise, we're never getting rid of these people. These people aren't self-deporting unless you're offering them a ton of money. So we need some kind of amnesty thing. We need some kind of immigration conversation. We need people to come together and have a conversation on this. But instead, it's this we're going to figure out a way to really deport 10 to 20 million people. And it's like, that's never happening.
Right here, Destiny just fully unloads the realism. You can hear the frustration in his voice because Kaizen just keeps floating to these idealistic, totally detached ideas like they're just common sense policy. Destiny calls it what it is: political fan fiction. It's not about whether something's possible in the abstract, it's about what's probable, realistic, and actually viable. Kaizen's response to this? Basically, well, maybe I'm just an idealist. Like, that's the problem. He's pushing this theory that with enough generational leadership, we could just overhaul legal immigration, convince millions of people to self deport, and do it all gently, with perfect messaging, timing, and coordination. Destiny drills into why that's a complete illusion. The immigration conversation is just a whole big mess. Nobody agrees on what reform even means. Conservatives can't even keep a consistent position on asylum, H-1B visas, or labor needs. And the idea that we're suddenly gonna get bipartisan unity on all of this? That's just fantasy. And when Destiny brings up the ripple effects, entire communities gutted, businesses wrecked, abandoned homes and cars, Kaizen just handwaves it again. Like, how are you still talking about incentives when people are that embedded? And Destiny nails it with that line about fairness. We've been fairness all the time in this country, especially when it benefits the right. But suddenly, when it comes to undocumented workers, we gotta go full moral absolutism? It's just selective outrage at its finest.
Okay, so I feel like maybe there's just a gap in maybe what we think this conversation that we're having right now is meant to do, right? Because I'm not here to defend Trump. I'm not here to rationalize for conservatives. I'm not here to make this a Democrat or Republican thing. I'm here to identify the best possible solutions to the problems that we face right now. What I'm hearing you say is that you're fundamentally pessimistic that some of the ideas that I'm advocating can even be done. I guess I'm optimistic about it. And I think that if we have conversations like this where we can at least identify what the best thing is, we can start changing the political will of the masses so that we can create enough political will to get them done. And you're saying it's infeasible. What I'm hearing is it's politically infeasible. I don't think it's logistically infeasible to do what I'm talking about. I don't think it's logistically infeasible to give people an incentive to leave because we're doing that. I don't think it's politically infeasible to enforce the law so that companies aren't paying people under the table because we can do that, or we do it selectively. So let's just do it all the way. I don't think it's politically infeasible to force some people out of the country, although we should keep that to an absolute minimum. Recently, DHS reported that part of the reason that they're giving people $1,000 to self-deport is because it costs $17,000 to force deport. At $17,000, I agree with you. We're not going to do it. And that's why I'm saying let's find this more easeful way to do it. So I think it's just a matter of providing proper incentives, enforcing the law, and increasing the throughput of the legal immigration system. And if you're saying, look, the conservatives are so intractable that it's just not possible, I guess I just disagree. Like, I think it's totally possible, but there needs to be enough public awareness of what is possible. There needs to be enough public desire to do something about it. I do actually think there's enough public desire to do something about this situation. Unfortunately, I think it's been channeled into a lot of animus toward illegal immigrants and just wanting to rain fire and brimstone and kick them out of the country. But I think underneath that, especially for people who are not strongly on the right, is there's probably a majority of the country who says, yeah, we do need some level of deportation. And in fact, there were surveys done around the time of the election saying that people were supportive of some form of deportation. And people just need to be made aware of a better way. So, yeah, I believe it's possible. I think this conversation hopefully helps people become aware and change their mind and become open to that. And that gets channeled into the will of Congress people through the legislative branch, because that's the way government's supposed to be enacted. But yeah, we're talking about this vague notion of fairness. I'm going to say again, yeah, it's abstract, but it's incredibly, incredibly important, because right now we're the most divided that we've ever been. There's a least level of public trust. Things are being done forcefully because we can't do things through reconciliation and actual conversation. And if we just give up on the whole project of democracy and communication and doing things properly, yeah, you're right. We're not going to get anything done. But I think it requires us first acknowledging that, hey, look, maybe we can change things. And maybe there's actually a moment right now in the American culture where people are open to change.
So Kaizen closes up this debate by trying to sound measured and hopeful, talking about solutions, awareness, and changing the political will. But after everything Destiny just broke down, it's clear that Kaizen's still clinging to the same unrealistic plan here. He just wants to look like the reasonable voice, but all he's done is just repackage a right-wing framework in a softer language. And this is exactly how these debates just get skewed. One side floats a fantasy with a calm tone and gets treated like they're being thoughtful, and the other side brings receipts, points out the flaws, and somehow they're the ones being difficult. That's the quiet bias baked into how these conversations get framed. And speaking of biases, are you getting tired of getting news from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite? How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.